Welcome to the Future of Influence show, where we are learning from a sample of experts their unique perspective on what is it that you need to do if you want to go from being an employee to creating the work life of your dreams. I am your host, Sandra Amaya, and I'm really excited and honored to introduce you to today's speaker, Isabel Hunt. Isabel is a successful motivational speaker, sociologist, transformation coach, emotions clearing practitioner, and author of the book, The Power of Faith-Driven Success. Isabel, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. And I applaud you for saying my name the right way. You're probably the only one.
Oh, really? I was going to ask you, and then I forgot. I was like, I should really ask how to pronounce this name, and I really don't know how, it came to my head, so.
No, it's perfect, because in German it's Isabel, and in English everyone is like Isabel. I'm like, okay. And so you said it right. It's like good to hear how your parents would say it. So
okay, good to hear that too, that I didn't screw up your name. All right, so Isabel, before we start, could you please tell us a little bit more about your background and what is it that you do that you specialize on in your gifts?
Yes. Well, my background, I'm originally from Germany. I moved to the US about 10 years ago. That was all kind of a prophetic pathway for me. I'm not going to get into the whole story because it would take too long, but it was all very prophetically guided and divinely guided to be here where I'm at today. My background is in sociology and psychology. That's what my degree is in. And I always wanted to get into counseling. And when I came to the US, I was trying to get my master's in counseling, but I never had $60,000. So I'm like, okay, maybe I don't think it even resonates with me anymore. So I just stuck with getting deeper into the field of sociology automatically, because ever since I was a teenager, I loved psychology and sociology. I studied with my dad because he studied social work when I was older. So it's always been part of my life. And so I was like, okay, so what am I supposed to do with that? Because it's still kind of like, it's like that kind of degree where you know a lot about people, but there are not really many jobs that would require that degree. It's kind of odd. But then I met a friend through a friend who said, well, if you're not getting into counseling, what about coaching? I was like, well, I don't know really what that is, but sure, I'll take a look. And so we went to Chicago and watched a weekend how they're doing it. And my husband was like, okay, if you're not going to do this, and I don't know what you want to do, but I think this is really, really perfect for you. So I went through a whole year of coaching training, in particular spiritual ontological coaching training. So it goes really, really deep. And through that, I really discovered who I was and the abilities that I have. I'm highly sensitive, also known as an empath. And about 3 or 4 years ago, I coined the term empath warrior, which is the ambivert between the extro and intro, and trying to figure out how to balance that with almost like supernatural gifts that a lot of us have. Mine are also called it's a neurological condition, actually. It's called synesthesia, which means I see everything in color. But in my case, to take it a little deeper, it's when I focus especially on people, I see it's almost like a color that surrounds their heart. And it usually is related to a message of the soul. So I can use that with my work really, really well. That also means that most of my clients just can't lie to me. It's usually not working well. But after I got my coaching degree, while I was getting my coaching degree, I was working for a corporate job. I had a corporate job. And it just sucked the life out of me. For one, we all had those cubicles, where it's just literally impossible to think straight without having other people cross your thoughts every time. And so, I didn't make it for too long. I said to my husband, I can't do this. Something has to change. I need to find something different. And that's when I went into Self-employment, being an entrepreneur, it hasn't been easy. It has been quite interesting though. And I'm not necessarily working in particular with people who leave their corporate job or their job in general, starting something else. But a lot of my clients are on that track. It just almost comes with it, I guess. And so, yeah, and that's with my degree and everything that I have studied over the last years, it just came down to especially the foundation of emotions, how we're perceiving the physical and the spiritual, how we have separated ourselves from this knowing so that we are all pretty much emotionally underdeveloped to the degree that it causes a lot of misunderstandings, a lot of conflict, not just with other people, but also with ourselves. And especially as entrepreneur, if we want to move forward, you're very much, you have to rely on yourself a lot and your own judgment, because you don't just do tasks like you would with a job. You don't just do what someone else tells you to. And so that there has been a lot of emotional work, especially trapped emotions from past experiences, even inherited, that can get in the way very easily. So that's how I got into all of that.
Wow, amazing story. Really interesting too. So in the context of a person that is trying to make a big change in a career, right? Which you went through that too. Why do you think emotional awareness is so important for success?
I can say that in one sentence. If you can get anywhere where you want emotionally and you don't even know exactly where you want to go and how you're going to feel or how you want to feel, you will never get there physically, because you continue to sabotage yourself. You buy into whatever you feel, and especially the labels and the stigmas that have we attached to what we feel, then you might fall into the trap of constantly hustling and burnout and wearing yourself out, being exhausted at the end of giving up, like literally to the point of giving up, or you don't move at all. Those are usually the extremes if the emotional awareness is missing when you start your own adventure, especially when you start your own adventure, because there's so much head talk going on when you start something new, something that might be out of your comfort zone. Even if you're passionate about it, it might be totally outside of your comfort zone, because now you have to provide for yourself. You don't just get a paycheck every week. You have to figure out how to pay for it every week. And so there's a whole lot of head trash that most likely will push your emotions in a very, maze kind of way, and you get very confused.
Right. And on top of that, you have society, friends,
Mm-hmm.
family that also add to that, the expectations they have about you. So add to that all that you have
Yep.
already in your head, and then you can get completely lost.
Oh, yes.
Right. And then why do you think, that we are emotionally undeveloped these days?
It all goes back historically to, I think it already started in the 15th century with Martin Luther, somewhere around that time, where he separated the Lutheran Church, or he established a Lutheran Church, separating himself from the Catholic Church. Because already back then, the Catholic Church used emotions for manipulation, like especially the emotional bondage to disappointment, and if you don't do this, this and this will happen to you. So that's like this almost an emotional trauma that people experience. If I don't do that, God will hate me kind of mindset, right? Oh, it's still present in most churches. But that's when it already started, where he realized, okay, there's some manipulation going on. I don't like that. And that's when he wrote out the commitments, and not the commitments. I don't know what the English word for it is. Anyways, and then moving forward in the 17th century, there was René Descartes. And he was very highly spiritual in the way he wanted to discover everything, really going deep to energy and how the world really works, the illusion of the world, how we connect with each other. And so he studied emotions. And in particular, he wanted to really study the energy around emotions, the spiritual side of emotions. What is it really about emotions, not just the physical? This is where it shows up. This is how it shows up in your body. This is how it drives your thoughts. And even though a lot of people think it's your thoughts driving your emotions, it's not always true. But he wanted to know more, and the church found out about it, the Catholic Church, and told him that he's not allowed to focus on the spiritual side of it. So he had to actually sign a contract that prohibited him from getting deeper into the spiritual side of it. So the spiritual and the physical has always been separated. We only focused on the reactive part, but never really on the reflective part. And the church was able to continue using the reflective part in the way they were controlling people. Has always been the case, always, ever since the institution of church has been established in the way it is today. Back in the time of Jesus, that was totally a different story. It was meant to be totally different than what it is established today. So moving forward, there was the Western world who continued focusing on the physical, but then there was the Eastern world who, like Buddhism and Hinduism, they focused more on the spiritual side of things. They actually understood a lot of that. And with globalization, we started to communicate more about that. And so that knowledge resonated with a lot of people in the West and moved over where, like, I didn't know any of that. Like, I was literally the victim to my own emotional experiences. If I would have known all that, I would have actually experienced life in a totally different way. But now, of course, because that also means an emotional, mature person is not very easily manipulated. Now, of course, people who have used that as a tactic, if it's in advertising, PR work in general, it's all based on emotional, psychological manipulation. Well, now they are coming out like, that's all bullshit. That, like, this is all Satan work and this is not true and you can't use that, you know. And that's the struggle between ego and the divine self that we're experiencing. And so, especially when you step out into the world where nobody tells you anymore what you are supposed to do on a daily basis, you have to figure it out yourself. Well, your ego becomes really loud very quickly and uses your emotions to manipulate you into thinking you are nothing, you're not good enough, you shouldn't be doing that. Because if we're actually most entrepreneurs go out to do something really mission-driven, purpose-driven. And if we're actually doing that, we're completing the collective puzzle, how I call it. When we understand our place within the collective becomes one, and the understanding of being one becomes more clear. And we're all having the same path, just on a different journey, each one of us, right? So that's why where there are a lot of researchers and teachers that say especially the Western world is very emotionally underdeveloped, and that causes the hero syndrome, because we always need to make ourselves a little bit better by saving everyone else, right? And the poor people, and oh my gosh, all the bad, the third world countries, they're doing so bad. Really, if we were to just leave them alone, they probably are more powerful than what we could have ever imagined. But even there, we use emotional manipulation to making believe that there are countries that are below everyone else. And that's not true. So if we were to be emotionally aware, we would be able to see that manipulation going on in politics, in business in general, and within the economics, anything really. We would figure it out.
Any system that we have to learn. Sorry?
And people are afraid of that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, of course. It's based on fear and manipulation. Yeah. Yeah, so yes, almost any system that we have to belong to, because we are in this society, can manipulate us in very subtle ways.
Yeah.
But it's in our subconscious, right? But the good thing is that, I mean, in my opinion, is that once you start doing a little bit of the work, start to get in, to try to get more emotionally intelligent, you start seeing the switch super fast. And then you can no longer say that it doesn't work, that is not true. because you see it in the way in small manifestations initially, but you can actually see it and improve it for yourself.
Yeah. It's an interesting journey to be on, because when you start to befriend your emotions and everything that you experience is becoming your friend in the way it is guiding you in life, a whole lot of stuff comes up from the past. We have done nowadays a lot of research on epigenetics, meaning transgenerational transmitted trauma that is being passed down generation to generation, that is hanging on to us like a bad disease. So there's so many things that will come to the surface. In the beginning, it's actually very, very uncomfortable, because we have to create not just a different relationship to how we experience emotions, but that also shifts the relationship that we have with ourselves. And the more we see and connect within ourselves, the less we can sabotage ourselves, but the more we are pushed to doing the things that are totally outside of our comfort zone. And then we have to increase our trust level. And if we don't, some of the other emotions come back in to tell us, hey, you're off your path, like go back, you're no longer in alignment. But often we just try to pull against them, like there's something wrong with me, I feel bad, this is happening. Like even any chemical imbalance within your body is related to an energetical imbalance. And that most often, like they say over 90% of the times, goes back to some kind of emotional imbalance or trapped emotions. So of course, in our society, oh, I feel depressed, I shouldn't do this work, maybe it's just really not meant for me. And then we go to the doctor and just being numbed down, literally, like getting medications and anything. And then we feel fine with it. And then eventually you might even just go back into our old habits and old lifestyle. And then we wonder, maybe I'm not meant to do something bigger. Maybe I'm just supposed to be here and be okay with it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's exactly how you say it. It's just the way we were taught to deal with our emotions, to not progress, to not change, to keep being the same person every day. Because if we don't push, if we don't go through it, we don't go to the next step. Because at the end of the day, it's a work that never ends.
Right, it continues. I mean, I've been doing this work for over 7 years now, in particular focusing on the world of emotions, the coaching, the spiritual work. Sometimes I sit on like, I should know all this, right? Like I should have figured this all out. But it's a constant journey of healing. No matter what goal you have for yourself, no matter what passion you have and whatever dream you have on your heart, it is always part of the overall healing journey of your soul. It's never anything else. It's not about reaching your goals. It's not about how much money you're going to make. It's not about how you're going to save the world. That is just a side product of the actual journey. The actual journey is whatever you're called to do, whatever you are going to do, is part of something that needs to be healed within yourself. It's calling something out, like, hey, I think you need to pay some attention here, and you need to focus on the healing work of it so that you can move forward on your path to being really fully able to step into the mission work that is called out and that is cut out for you.
Right. Yes, I guess we should switch to a bigger picture mentality, if you will, just to understand that, for example, if you want to make a career switch, it's just another experience that your soul wants to have in this lifetime. And then when you do that and you are able to overcome all the, the limitations that you may have and actually manifest it, then maybe you're going to say, all right, now I want to experience something completely different. And that's only because your soul might be just, okay, I'm done with this experience. Now I want to do this other thing that might have nothing to do with that. Right? All right. So just to finalize, it's important for me to know, okay, so how can we start, understand our emotions better so we can, be more in tune with our passions and live that way and,
Right.
advance faster in that soul's journey.
Right. Well, for one, it is a very simple exercise that I share with all of my clients. All of them have to go through it. Sorry. But it's very a simple exercise because in the end, it's about figuring out the patterns that I have created for myself that keep me where I'm at today, or patterns that are calling out something inside of me that I need to focus on and that I need to work through. And that is the exercise of just for a week or two, you always have like a diary or something with you, a notebook, where even the first thing in the morning you wake up and you write down how you feel when you wake up. I feel tired, or I just want to go back to bed. And then you get yourself out of bed and you take a shower. And when you get out, you realize, oh my gosh, I feel like anxious, I feel sad, I feel whatever else shows up. And then you take a look at, okay, what triggered that? What was that created that emotional trigger? Okay, I went through my whole to-do list. I was thinking about having to face my boss. I had thought about having to get my children out of bed and whatever. Like, write this all down all through your day. At the end of each day, look over it again and reflect on the things that happened throughout the day that created the emotional shifts. What happened? Do you see a pattern? Do you see synchronicities? Do you see anything in that matter that is related? And you do that for a week or two, and after that you see a pattern. Like, oh, I do this and this every morning, and I think this thought pretty much all day long, and I'm realizing what it creates inside of me and how I feel. And now most of us don't know what we actually feel, so you don't have to actually know the label for what you feel, because everything is just energy and a specific vibration anyways. If you cannot describe the actual word of what you feel, just describe how it feels physically. It hurts my chest, it hurts my shoulders, or my shoulders feel really heavy, or I suddenly started to have this hip pain, or my head hurt. Like, anything to that degree, what you realize is going on, because it does give you a message every time, like, hey, I think I need to shift my thought pattern here, or I need to create a different morning routine to be more successful throughout my day. Because let's be honest, if you don't feel okay with where you're at in that moment, and even if it is your work environment that you would like to get out of, but if you are not okay with that, you will find other ways when you start your own job to continue that same pattern. So you have to be okay first with where you're at. You have to understand how you respond to certain things, how you respond to what certain people say to you, how you respond to certain belief systems, so that you eventually can break them up. So this little exercise just gives you a start, like something to look at, like, oh, okay, well, I didn't realize I'm doing that. Oh, I don't really want to feel this way. So how can I shift that and practice something else for the next couple of days to see if that would work for me? Now, going deeper, most likely you want someone who can help you with that, because you can get in your head very easily. Like, we tend to overthink, we tend to overanalyze. Don't even do that. Like, don't overanalyze. It's not worth it, because then you just literally get really trapped in this vicious cycle of spiral down, not working. And then you just kind of, with that already, that sense of, okay, this is what I do, you can continue getting deeper into it. Like, for example, I have a online course, and I'm not saying everyone has to sign up for it, but of course, if you want to, it's called The Empowered Warrior, a simple guide to successfully navigating your emotional world. It literally is that simple. For 20 or 30 minutes a day, you go through one of a specific emotion, you learn what it's actually about, what message it is trying to communicate with you, then you print out the cheat sheet that has some coaching questions. So when you feel angry, you go and you're like, oh my gosh, okay, I feel angry. What was just happening that made me feel angry? Or what was the emotion that I felt before that? It could have been helplessness. It could have been disappointment that created the anger. You know, it doesn't always have to start out with anger. It could have been something else in the process that got you to the point of being angry, because anger is all about boundaries. If you can Honor your own boundaries. Someone else stepped over your boundaries. Maybe there is a belief system that is outside of your boundaries that you have set, and maybe there's some growth that is calling to you, like, hey, I think you need to expand your boundaries a little bit. So there's some of those reflective questions. The same with fear. Fear is nothing bad. We always have it like this big monster in the room. I'm like, oh, geez. That's why we fear fear. Have you realized that in our society, we fear to be afraid? And of course, then we are afraid of fear. And so we're constantly in fear. I don't get it. Like, it's, to me, that's like exhausting. But that is also just a messenger saying, hey, I think you're ready for this next step. Unless you're in physical danger, then of course, please run. Don't analyze that. Right? I mean, we all have like the common sense, hopefully. But when fear shows up while you're doing something, it's not telling you, oh, don't do that, or you have to push through it. It's just like that cheerleader that's sitting next to them, like, hey, I understand it's out of your comfort zone, but I know you can do it. Just turn back to trust. Like, it's an invitation to trust more in yourself and in the divine, if that's a thing for you. So it's just learning about that and then really listening to it deeply into the message of it, and you will find your path. It's even like as an entrepreneur, there's so many programs out there that you're supposed to do to figure out the marketing side of it, the funnel side of it, and you need to do this and that and that. And you buy into it because you want to be successful. You want to make money. Like, oh yeah, that's going to be the next big thing for me. Well, but if you're actually listening to your emotions or your emotional response to it, it may not be for you. It may not give you any result at all, but instead you would waste $50,000, So knowing and having that emotion awareness, for one, gives you freedom. It gives you a sense of peace. It helps you to make decisions faster. It helps you to make the right decisions for you. And if it turns out to be not the right decision, you know, what is it that I can learn from this? Where is some healing to be done within myself so that I don't get into that same situation again? So it's always an invitation to live life instead of just having life happen to you. But when we don't have that awareness, like we said earlier, it's easy to manipulate you into buying stuff. Like we see it with marketing. The language people use when they try to sell their products to you. All of those things, they will get you. And eventually you look back after 2 years, oh my gosh, I just spent $100,000 that I didn't have. Now I am deep shit and I don't know what to do with that. I think I need to find another job. See where I'm going with that? So that is definitely something we all have to become more aware of. It doesn't even matter if you want to get out of your job or not, if you want to continue, or if you want to try the entrepreneurship side of it. This is basic and very foundational to living life successfully and to be able to relate to each other as well. If you're emotionally unaware and underdeveloped, it's really hard to create the relationships that you need to build your business too.
Wow, that's really important. That's a really important point. And everything was such a lot of good, valuable information what you just gave us. It's just a complete, it's way bigger than what we thought, and it's really a process. So I have a sense that what you just explained is part of our free gift, the free gift that you're offering to the audience.
Yes, I totally forgot about it. Yes, I have. I'm the girl of simple, so excuse me if I don't have all separate landing pages for everything, because that makes it just so overwhelming. And there's a lot of things that overwhelm me in business, but I kept it all to my website. So there is a free opt-in on my website. It's called the Emotions Guide to Success. It gives you more detail. I think in the guide, it talks about fear, happiness. It also talks a little bit about stress. So it gives you some more ideas and where I'm thinking and how I'm thinking and what direction, and see if it resonates with you, because I think it's like 3 pages. It includes some coaching, some general understanding of what some of those emotions, especially the mostly experienced emotions in entrepreneurship, mean to you and how you can use them and make them your friend. So that's on my website. It's isabelhunt.com, ISABELHUNDT.com. right on the front page. Like, you can't even miss it. It's a nice yellow banner. You can't miss it. And I don't bombard anyone with emails. So anyone, like, if you're afraid to get a whole bunch of emails, if you sign up for that, it's not going to happen.
Well, Isabel, thank you so much for that free offering. I'll be sure to look it up and do it myself because I really, really need to do some work here.
Who doesn't? I do too.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for your time. This was amazing. And guys, you just hang out with Sandra, Amaya, and Isabel Hunt. Please make sure to check your inbox for tomorrow's interview, and I'll see you soon.
Bye.
Mhm.